That said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to owner Dick Monfort. Dick?
Thanks. Thank you all for calling in. Hopefully you and your families are all healthy and safe. We are here to discuss Nolan's trade to St. Louis. This brings closure to something that is we have been dealing with for over a year. Nolan is an incredible player. He came up through our system. I'd like to think we had a part in the player he has become. For over a decade, Nolan Arenado was a Colorado Rocky. In 2019, we signed Nolan to what I would call a career contract, something we were committed to. 9 months later, Nolan asked us to look for a trade. In 2020 came COVID and the stark reality of a shortened season, one without fans. Nolan's desire to move on never wavered. With an option to move on at year end, the most cost-efficient way to let it play out. That also was the lowest return, and doing that also had some risks associated with it. We talked with several teams. Ultimately, we determined there was a deal to be made with St. Louis. We don't discuss financial details, but I can tell you what has been reported is not completely accurate. There are deferrals, and the money is spread out over a number of years. In return, 5 players with a legitimate opportunity come our direction, players who we believe will help us. I am aware this is not a popular decision, but I promise you it wasn't made with haste. I'm a fan first. I think you all know that. Our players are like family to me. We were blessed by Nolan, and we all had a front row seat to watch this unbelievable player. Unfortunately, nothing lasts forever. I will always wish Nolan and his family the very best. Let me close with this. We have an extremely talented team. They are built to compete. It is time for them to take the next step. We are excited for our season ahead and look forward to the challenges. And I guess we'll open it up to you, Corey, for questions.
Great. Thanks, Dick. We'll go to Thomas Harding with Rockies.com first. Thomas, go ahead.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for talking to us. I wanted to ask, I know there'll be a lot of questions about what went into this and the relationship and everything, but what I want to ask is this. Where are you guys right now? Is this the start of a rebuild like we've seen with other teams where they trade off some of their top players, their assets, and try to build for the future? Is this that at this point? And I'm opening it up to both of you, and I do have a follow-up.
Take that, Dick. I think that Thomas, thanks for the question. I would say that there are in this industry there are probably levels and different variations of a rebuild process. This certainly is not a total tear down and rebuild like certain teams have chosen to undergo over time. I think if that were the case, certain players would have already been traded, right? Or we would have made serious overtures to move certain players in an effort to completely tear down and start a complete rebuild. So, no, I don't think that we don't think that this is the case for our situation right now. I think there are always parts of your team and your organization and the group of talent that you have that you're looking to add to or you're looking to improve on. But we believe in so many of the players that we have, and there are such good parts of this major league team that they are already established and already exist. So, that's somewhat of a long answer to your short question, but that's our feeling right now.
And to follow up on that, I guess it's a little bit of a two-parter. Where does Trevor Story show up in the thought of maybe improving the club versus holding on? And could that decision be now or at the deadline? And I guess And yeah, I'll just leave it at that, and I'll leave that to others after this.
Well, Trevor, obviously Trevor's has become an elite player. His situation is separate from Nolan's situation, as is the case with the rest of our players. We certainly cherish having Trevor as our shortstop, and it's very difficult to answer your question directly. Very difficult to predict what the coming months what they're going to look like in terms of the deadline, in terms of this season in general. We are going to try to make the season happen, right? But we do not know what the pandemic and what the virus is going to do and how things are going to work out. So it's somewhat difficult to predict because of a number of factors exactly how this is going to look for Trevor in the near future and for other players in the near future.
So does he start the season with you? Can you say that right now?
Yes, I think so. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We'll go to Patrick Saunders with the Denver Post. Patrick, go ahead.
Guys, thanks for talking to us. Really appreciate it. I know this is not an easy time for you guys. For both of you, my basic question is this. Was this primarily a financial consideration, as Dick mentioned in his opening statements? Or was it more that you had the sense that Nolan Arenado simply didn't want to be a Colorado Rocky anymore?
Yeah, I mean, a year ago, we tried to find out whether there was a fit for Nolan quietly. That was Nolan's and our hope. And it got out, but and we shut it down because there wasn't anything that was a fit. If I had my brothers, I would rather have Nolan Arenado. But it was Nolan's choice. He wanted to move on. And, I've speculated over the last year why. And I've talked to Nolan a lot about it over the last year. But the fact remains that I think he just felt it was time for him to try something else out. So, that said, what do? I mentioned you can just wait and have him opt out at the end of the year and you get a draft choice, or you can talk to some other teams and see if you can make a better deal. So, although there's a lot of financial ramifications in this, I think the fact of the matter is we honored what Nolan wanted to do, and we made what we thought was the best thing we could do at the time. And, as I also mentioned, this didn't just all of a sudden happen. This took a lot of work. And so I think these are the results of that.
And if I could follow up with Jeff, and I'm not sure you're going to want to answer this or not, but Nolan in various ways has told us, the media, his side of the story, and you know what those comments have been. You have not to this point chosen to respond. Would you like to characterize your relationship with Nolan for us and for the Rockies fans?
Well, I would say this. Nolan and I have known each other for over a decade. I've known his family for over a decade. There have been, so many interactions over that time, starting with when we just drafted him, spring training, years of spring training with his parents coming down and his brother and his cousins, and, on into times at Tulsa and when he was a minor leaguer and, I was a farm director. And then as he became a big leaguer and as he became an elite big leaguer. I think that when you in this chair and in this job, when you recommend that we sign him to a $250 million contract, that comes with an incredible amount of belief in that person. You don't push for that sort of a commitment and that sort of a contract unless you believe in the person, you believe in the talent, you believe in the future of the organization with that player. And, but over time, sometimes relationships change. And this is not an easy, necessarily an easy industry to be in. People are competitive, and human beings change over time. Our feelings, what's important to us, and sometimes there are complications, and it's not always a straight line, and it's not always simple, and it's not always easy. But I think my point is that at the base of all of this relationship was a strong belief that I've always had in Nolan ever since I first got to know him. And so, we wish him nothing but the best. We really do. We feel like he's going to do a great job for St. Louis. And we hope that he and his family are, no different than we always have. Even though that there have been some bumpy times in the past, we wish him the best.
Thanks, Jeff.
Go to Nick Groke with The Athletic next. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, for both of you or either of you, you signed him to an 8-year deal, and then 9 months later, he's asking for a trade. For two parts, what was the instigating factor for him to want out so soon after signing the deal? And then from your side, again, he was under contract. You didn't necessarily have to trade him. What was it that kicked you into agreeing to it, to what he wanted in the way of a trade?
Let me take this. I have anguished for many sleepless nights wondering why that happened. When we signed, first of all, we agreed to his last year of arbitration. They said they were going to come back and they wanted to do a long-term deal. I don't know that Jeff or either one of us were sure if they were going to do that, but they did. I wouldn't sense that we pushed him to sign that. I think it was fairly mutual. We were interested and he seemed very interested. So, I've speculated personally on a lot of those things. We had we just come off 2 playoff years, 17 and 18. We had a bad year in 19. I've reached back to everything. I think that in 17 and 18, Nolan I would have felt if I was Nolan, that he didn't get enough love from the people that decide who should be MVPs and this, that, and everything else. I don't know. I really don't know. And to be quite honest, in all our conversations with him, he never just said it was this or that or whatever. I just sort of felt it out. So the other part of that is, why do it now? As I mentioned, we basically had 2 choices. We had the choice of waiting till the end of the year and letting him opt out. And that probably would have been the popular decision, or at least I could cleanse my hands of that. But the result is the same. And so in dealing with this, we tried to find a way that we could get the greatest return possible, if that makes any sense. There were many teams that we talked to, and there were many deals that made no sense. And to be quite honest, there were 10 times over the last 2 weeks where I didn't think the St. Louis deal made any sense. But Jeff did an incredible job of pushing the talent. And, I know none of us know these guys real well, especially since there was no minor league season last year. But our amateur scouts had seen these guys, some of them. And, these are talented guys. And at the end of the day, do you want to take a draft pick at the end of the year if he would opt out? Or do you want to take your chance with 5 guys that sort of at least 3 or 4 of them fit in the same type of caliber that you would get from that draft choice. So, I mean, that was the decision. It was a difficult decision the whole time, but that's what went into our thinking.
And just to clarify, so did he tell you that he would definitely opt out at the end of the year, and that was the fear?
He had told us he wanted to be traded, so our assumption was that he would opt out. Yes.
Thank you.
We go to Pat Graham with the Associated Press. Pat, go ahead.
Hey, thank you very much for taking the time. Question for each of you. Jeff, I'm going to start with you. How hard was it to do this trade, knowing that you're going to be criticized no matter what? And how hard is it to hear people just, criticizing this deal right now?
It comes with the territory, Pat. It's a part of the job. It's a public job. It's a public organization, right? I mean, that's part of the great element of sport is that it's with the public, for our fans. It's not a private venture in most respects. So, I as I've said before, I think in interviews, I try to stay off of social media as much as possible, as best I can. It just is. It's part of the job.
Thank you for that. And Dick, one question for you would be the backlash from fans. I mean, there's a lot of vitriol out there right now from fans. How do you handle that, and what's your message to them going forward?
I actually see some of it, not on purpose, but I do see some of it. I mentioned I'm a fan, and I truly am. So I understand how they feel. And to be quite honest, I would probably feel the same way. And maybe I do even feel the same way. Like I said, when we signed Nolan, it was in an attempt to keep Nolan here for the rest of his career. But things do change. So, I know maybe nobody on this call will believe this, but I truly in my heart believe that this is a very talented team that underperformed the last couple years. And, I'm not even going to count last year because it was a difficult year. But, I think we underperformed. So I believe, we're shorter talent than we were a year ago. But we've got a lot of guys that, to be quite honest, it's time to cut bait. And so this could be the challenge that they need. They need to step up and fill in this void. And the other thing is these days come, whether it's free agency, whether it's an end of a career, or whatever, these things happen in time. And the organization needs to, y'all have to step up. So we're gonna face some issues with our fans, and we'll deal with it. And hopefully we can get off and start playing well, and in time the fans will understand.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Go to Mark Kizzo with the Denver Post. Mark, go ahead.
One for each of you. First to Dick. You mentioned COVID-19, the pandemic, and that certainly had a major impact on all businesses, yours included. You also have a major project you're working on at the ballpark site in McGregor Square. To what extent have those financial realities impacted this decision with Nolan, and it will impact decisions going forward with this baseball team? And you also said nothing's forever. Has the current reality made you think that maybe you won't own this team forever?
You'd like that, wouldn't you? I guess the main question is McGregor Square and the Rockies. First of all, the two are different entities. There are 4 of the 8 owners of the Rockies that have invested in McGregor Square. There are 9 other investors that have invested in McGregor Square. It's a separate entity. They pay rent to the Rockies, and that rent is used to update the stadium so that so the Rockies don't have to take money out of their pocket to put new boilers in or, paint the place or keep it up. It'll help us to the tune of about $120 million over a 30-year period, which allows us to spend more on our payroll. And I think like I said, they're arm's length, they're separate, they have their own operation. I am an investor in that. And so the season for the Rockies, yes, it was a tough season. I think all teams had financial, shortages last year, but I agree with you that we're not the only business that had that. The airlines, the hotels, the restaurants, all those things have been challenged. So I don't think the decision to do this trade with Nolan, there are some financial ramifications going forward. But I think that, this was something we started dealing with before the pandemic. And as I mentioned, Nolan's desire to move on didn't change. And so I think we just continued the process that we had started a year ago.
And one for Jeff. As you've clearly stated, $250 million is more money than most of us can comprehend. And in pro sports, that's the ultimate sign of respect. Do you think Nolan Arenado would still be a Colorado Rocky if you had a better personal relationship with him outside of the money and you had done a better job of building a winning team in the last couple of years?
Well, Mark, I think you're asking me to speak for Nolan directly.
I'm asking for you to speak for yourself, sir.
Well, you asked me to interpret what Nolan might think. And so I don't ever try to speak for a player in terms of how he's going to feel about a situation with a team, whether it's the team itself, whether it's a relationship with me or Dick in this case, or a manager or teammates or anything like that. I have said, it's been clear, and I said it earlier with an earlier question, the relationship wasn't always peaches and cream, right? There were some bumps here and there, but relationships change over time. Could I have done a better job in certain areas? You betcha. Absolutely. And I can always do a better job in certain areas of my job in this organization. I think that goes without saying. And I think that's part of the human experience in this industry. And I don't, I take that to heart, and I don't think I'm blind to that. But I can't sit here and speak for how Nolan Arenado feels right now. I certainly try like heck not to do that, speak publicly for players. And I really never have gotten in a public war of words or a public conversation with a player. And so try to keep those things private and out of respect to everybody involved.
And building the winner. Because he was clearly upset, as well as you two were, with losing 90 games. What responsibility do you take for that?
Well, I take a ton of it, right? That's my job. I think if you rewind, Dick alluded to it. We 15 and 16 are building towards what we feel like our competitive playoff teams, 17 and 18. Some of those feelings are realized and beliefs are realized with the playoffs, and fully expected that, we would continue to take steps towards, even more playoff success. 19 didn't work out. We had a fine first half in 2019, and we're 5 or 6 games over, and then we really struggled in the second half, and it didn't work out for us in the second half at all. Last year, like everybody knows, right? Pandemic, there are complications, there were a lot of social issues, but every team in sports was interacting with that, and that was the reality for every team. So, we certainly jumped out of the gate last year and started real well, and then struggled in the second half. So that's a pattern that we would certainly like to change. But it hasn't just all been struggle all the time. There's been some really good play and good talent that's led to some good things. It just hasn't been as consistent, as we've wanted over the last 2 years that have led us to the playoffs.
Go to Michael Spencer with CBS4 next. Michael, go ahead.
I'll toss this out to either one of you. Have you guys talked to Charlie or Trevor, players who are on the roster, and what has their reaction been to you guys since this move has been made, if anything?
I'll take that first. We've talked, not since the trade. I mean, the trade just happened. So, but we've talked over time. The wintertime, you talk here and there, whether it's in person, over the phone, over text, with and through agents. All those things have happened as they normally do in a normal off season. But there hasn't, since the actual trade happened and to now, here we are in the Zoom, we have not spoken yet.
Dick, as a follow-up, the last 2 years, and you kind of touched on this, but obviously the winning percentage is down. Some of the free agent signings haven't worked out. DJ leaves and becomes an MVP candidate in New York. So what gives you that confidence that this team is headed in the right direction and that the people in charge are the right people to get this team?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, losing DJ was a big deal. And, in hindsight, I wish we could have figured out a way to keep DJ. And, DJ is a great guy and somebody that always played with a chip on his shoulder. And, the Cubs paid for that every time they played against us. So in hindsight, that we wish that we could redo that. The confidence in me is that, for 20 however many years we've been doing this, one of our goals in life was always to grow enough pitchers to where we could compete without having to bring somebody in here. It is different, as we all know, pitching at Coors Field. It takes a certain toughness to do that. It's not only a hitter's park, but it's we're playing at an altitude that these guys don't live at all year. So my biggest belief is that we have built pitching, and we've done it internally. We've got a lot of talented pitchers. I think last year, quality start wise, we led the league. I could be wrong on that, but I think we've got very good starters. I think that, had Scotty Oberg not been hurt last year, I think that would have helped us a lot in the bullpen. Jeff has worked very hard at getting young arms and not having to go out to the free agency market, which has not treated us well on relief pitchers. So I think that the pitching is really a core that we've never had in our history. And I know that in our minor leagues, we have some more guys coming. So I think that's a real positive. I think if anything, over the last 2 years, where we were hurting was, offensively, and some of that may go back to DJ. But the fact is, we have a lot of kids that we've developed that we believe in. And if we offensively can get to where we should be, I truly believe we'll have a good year. Now, losing Nolan doesn't help our offense any. I understand that, but I just feel that we have the nucleus of players that can get us to where we need to be.
Go to Mike Feinsand or Mark Feinsand with MLB.com. Mark, go ahead.
Jeff, I guess looking ahead, you talked about not knowing what was going to happen with Trevor, and just in general, when you're looking at free agency, do you worry about sort of how potential free agents might look at this situation that, you signed Nolan, one of your own guys, to this long-term deal, and then within such a short period of time, this all disintegrated to this point, and just the way that either your own players like Trevor or outside players may view the organization and how this all went down?
Hi, Mark. It's an individual sort of thing, I think, to the question that you're asking, right? And that's where conversations come in. And you specifically asked about free agents, but that's where conversations with agents and conversations a lot of time with the players themselves, that we try to do that. And, before if there's true interest in a situation, that's where you have an opportunity to try to explain the vision and explain the reality that goes along with that vision, and explain the organization and what the organization's about. So, but that's an individual thing that we take seriously, and I take seriously in terms of, the conversations that we have with free agents if they have interest in our work.
Thank you.
Kyle Glazer with Baseball America. Kyle, go ahead.
Hey, Jeff, what specifically was it about this 5 package of players that appealed to you and ultimately made you pull the trigger on this deal?
Well, St. Louis has got some, talented players in their system. And so, I think that the unfortunate lack of minor league baseball this past year, does create complication when you're looking for updated information, right? The most recent information, the most recent data, the most recent scouting reports. It's a little bit more of a challenge right now just because of the pandemic and how it's affected our industry as a whole. But when you go back and you look at, some of these guys and their history and the way that we evaluated them when they were amateurs, there was a lot of positive thought about all these guys. Certainly Austin Gomber has major league experience, and he's got major league performance that warranted serious consideration, and we really look forward. I talked to him last night. We look forward to having him be a part of our major league team, and we feel like it's a great opportunity for him, and he can add a lot in whatever role he ends up helping us. In terms of the minor league guys, Montero, strong corner bat, power, 22 years old, a lot of upside, right? Interrupted development because of last year. Mateo Gil, Tony Losi, Jake Summers, all those guys were recently drafted within the last 2 to 3 years. And so we had a lot of amateur looks at them. They've had limited professional experience because of the realities of 2020. But we felt really positive going back to their amateur days about who they were, how they competed, what they were about, and obviously their upside and their potential to become quality major leaguers.
To follow up, was there one player in particular whose inclusion really pushed it over the finish line?
No, I think in this case, it was a combination of players.
Thank you.
Sean Keeler with the Denver Post. Sean, go ahead.
Thanks for the time, gentlemen. Question for Jeff and a follow-up for Dick, if I could. Jeff, first to you, there have been published and unpublished anonymous reports of former players questioning the culture, questioning the commitment to winning, questioning a lot of commitments, period, from the organization, from a baseball and from a financial standpoint. You've addressed some of this today and some of the realities that everybody faces. Jeff, I'm just curious, knowing we can't name names of people who have said things, but when people say to you, this is a stepping stone clubhouse and a stepping stone organization, I've got to go somewhere else to win. What do you say to players who say that within themselves and to other former players?
It's difficult to to directly address, as you just said, anonymous and somewhat generalized reports about this. But look, this is an organization that has recently tasted the success of playoffs. Did we get as far in those playoffs in 17 and 18 as we wanted to? No. We certainly strive for World Series participation, and but it is a challenge that I think a lot of teams face, whether it's in this industry or other sports industries. Being World Series or high level playoff competitive every single year, year in and year out. It is the goal of the organization. It's a goal of the fans. So many of our fans want the same thing. It's a goal of the players. Making it a reality year in and year out, year after year after year is more complicated and more nuanced. And so I guess that's the best answer that I can give you right now to that question.
Thank you. Dick, you mentioned being a fan, having it feeling hurting you too, as it does a lot of people here over the last few days. What would you say, and what have you said to fans who are just pouring their hearts out because they care? And what can you show them, show the investment that you guys care too?
I think, first of all, the fact is, we did sign Nolan. I think we put the highest contract ever that we'd done out to Nolan. So, I think that's an indication we care. I think it's an indication that at that point in time, we felt that we were close enough that this is not a guy we wanted to lose. If you remember, if we wouldn't have done that in 19, he would have been a free agent at the end of 19. Now, who knows? We might have signed him then, or we might not have. But, we made the commitment. We made the commitment early to sign him. So, and we've made that commitment to other people. We've made that commitment to Charlie Blackmon. We made that commitment to German Marquez. We do everything in our power to keep this team as competitive as possible. We know that we're not going to ever get out there and go after Garrett Cole or some of the really top line free agents, because we're in a grouping, a mid-market team where we just can't take that risk, which means at times we have to sign sort of the next level down. The fact that Nolan isn't going to be here, we can't make up for that. The only way we really can make up for that is our young players that come along. When Troy left, that was another tough day, another tough period of time for this organization. And, fortunately, Trevor Story came in the next year and played incredible. And he has become this star player that he is now. And, So hopefully that next star will come out of having an opportunity to play third base or to play second base and move Ryan McMahon over there, or however it all works out. So, we've just got to continue to bring gifted players to the major leagues. And as we try to do, we try to hold on to them for as long as we can.
Thank you.
Go to Tracy Ringlesby. Tracy, go ahead.
Jeff, do you look at McMahon or Fuentes as being the guy to step in at third base and play that position?
Well, they're certainly, they are certainly right at the top of the list. I think you can add, in terms of guys that are already on the roster, you can add Brendan Rodgers to that. One of the things in our development process that we do is we try to make sure that all of our infielders get as much time at different, as many different infield spots as possible. And it's to prepare them for opportunity at the major league level that is tough to predict. And so their readiness is key. And we do have guys already on the roster that we feel like are well positioned to take advantage of this opportunity. There are other players off the roster in the organization that certainly will garner consideration. And I think Dick mentioned that, right? When you look back at Matt Holliday and we traded him, I think it was after the 08 season, and that he left and Willie Taveras left, and it provided an opportunity for players like Dexter Fowler and Seth Smith and Ryan Spilborghs to take the next step in their careers. Dick mentioned when we traded Troy, I think we were fortunate at that time that Trevor Story was positioned well to take advantage of that. He had already done certain things at the AAA level at a high level, and we didn't know that he was going to, shoot out of the gate like he did, and at the major league level right away, right? I mean, that's another thing that's difficult to necessarily predict, and it's really difficult to do what he did at that time. Step into the big leagues and really not miss a beat at all, or struggle at all. And so now there's an opportunity for other kids and other guys to take that next step in their career. And, we're confident that we have talented guys, and it's, now it's up to them to grab hold of the opportunity and run with it.
Mark Carrad from The Athletic. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, this one's for Jeff. I realize it's hard to speak the chatter, so I just thought I'd lay out a couple of facts here. The team hasn't won the division. You've misread the true talent the last 2 years of your team. Now, one of the best players in baseball, who you lavished a giant extension upon, is no longer playing for your team. So, how is there any other way to see that as anything but an organizational failure at this point?
Sorry, Mark, you cut out in the middle there.
Look, Nolan Arenado is no longer playing for you. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But at the end of the day, he's no longer playing for your team. So is there any other way to see that as anything but an organizational failure? Because he's no longer there. And as you guys have said, he's a great player. So is that on the organization? And if so, what insights can you take? Because that seems like a major, major problem.
Yeah, look, I mean, if we're looking to pass blame, I mean, you can blame me, right? It's the job of the GM to create a team that competes and wins as much as humanly possible. But I think the word human there is an important one. There are relationships in our human existence that do last forever. But we are human beings in a business where sometimes relationships don't last forever and commitments don't last forever. And it's not just endemic to this particular sport, baseball. It's all over sports, where sometimes it's best for, in this case, Nolan's desired to move and be with a different organization, and so we we honored that. We tried to honor that and listen to him. But if you're looking to parse out blame, I mean, you can throw the blame right on me. That's part of the role. That's part of the job.
Okay, and just to follow up then, like, is this a one-off case of a relationship gone sour with a disgruntled player? Or is this an indication of your leadership and how you treat people? Because this club has traded people before. And then also, you guys haven't won a division. And the last 2 years, you thought the team was at a certain talent level, and it wasn't. So, could you speak to those points?
I don't know how to call it a one-off, or I would call it a one-off necessarily. But I do take great responsibility in trying to make sure that we are as competitive as we can possibly be with the resources that we have. And does every decision that comes in every season or across seasons work out? No. You take some risks at times, and you think that certain things are going to work out, and you have a vision as to how those things might go, and sometimes they do work out, and they do work out great. Sometimes they work out better than you expect, and sometimes it's the exact opposite. And and I think that's part of the human existence in this sport as well. But I would say that without risk, if you don't take risk, I think you're limiting your reward at the end. And so, we just try to make the best decisions that we possibly can collectively, and take the best risks that we possibly can collectively within the parameters that we have in the organization.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for a couple more here. I apologize if we can't get to everybody. We'll go to Ed Henderson with KOA. Ed, go ahead.
Hey guys, good morning. Thanks for your time. I wanted to ask, we all know, guys, that there's still a significant number of players out there on the free agent market. Is it possible that some of the financial relief that came from this transaction could result in you potentially considering looking at some of those free agents as a potential addition to the team? And I do have a follow-up. So, Jeff, that's for you.
Yeah, Ed, I would say that there's certainly a lot of agents that have checked in since the news broke last week. So, there are going to be discussions with agents in the coming days, I'm sure, in the coming weeks. Now that we know that spring training is going to start on the 17th of February, there is some maybe more urgency than there has been over the past few months. But where those conversations end up remains to be seen. We'll just kind of take it case by case and see if there's a fit, weigh that out against the opportunity cost that that would relate to some of the players we already have on the roster or in the organization.
And Jeff, the follow-up, the 5 guys that are coming from the Cardinals, have all the medicals been completed on them? And a quick question about Gomber, if I may. I wanted to ask you at this point, I know it's very early, but do you see him as a guy that could challenge potentially for a rotation spot, or if you had to make a guess right now, would you see him in the bullpen?
Yeah, the medicals are clear. That's all part of the the process that needs to go on prior to something becoming finalized. So that's all done. I would say we're going to get to know Austin as best we can here and as quickly as we can. I think he's, speaking to him last night, he's going to certainly prepare himself as a starter here coming into spring training. But there's a lot of conversation and relationship building, especially with he and our pitching coaches and Buddy. And we'll just take some time to evaluate all of that in terms of his role before we make a final decision.
Thanks, Jeff.
Go to Jacob Toby with 9 News. Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah, this one's for Jeff. Jeff, I think a lot of the time when these big trades happen, fan bases and media members look to pinpoint like a blue chip guy coming back to sort of look forward to. Do you see one of the five in this package, or is it more just you're hoping for a grouping of them to come up and sort of, make an impact?
Yeah, I would say they all have Gomber obviously has already been at the major league level and established himself in certain ways and performance-wise at the major league level. So I think so far, I mean, there's a lot of upside there too, right? But so far his track record speaks for itself. The other guys we feel like have, the four others have a legitimate chance to impact us at the major league level. They're young players still. And so with interrupted developments and because of the lack of a 2020 minor league season. And so we feel really good about collectively their opportunity to hit our major leagues, hit the major leagues with us at some point here. It's tough to know the timeline, and it's tough to see exactly where and how minor league baseball is going to be played, even moving forward here. So I think we have to reserve some of those, comments and looks until their development process starts up again.
Okay.
Time for a couple more. Drew Kreisman, go ahead, please.
All right. Thanks, guys, for taking the time. I was going to ask this of both of you, but I feel like it was more or less asked of Jeff already. So, Dick, I just wanted to ask, you had mentioned the DJ LeMahieu situation. I remember at the end of season gathering we all had in 2019, you had talked about some other things at the deadline, didn't get into details. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate on your role in making those kinds of baseball decisions and if it's evolved at all over the last couple of years. As some of these things you've admitted, like you said, I wish we could have done that differently. If there's anything that's changed or evolved, and especially now after this Nolan thing, about your role in terms of making baseball decisions.
Yeah, I hope not. I'm a fan, so I communicate with Jeff a lot. We talk about different players. I'm a homer. I love all the players that come up through our system. So I'm always, I always hate to get rid of any of them. But no, I don't think so. And, the DJ, that comment was more just looking backwards. I know that, DJ wanted to stay a Rocky. His agent said that, at the time he was looking for a long-term deal. And I remember Hal Steinbrenner asked me at a meeting, he said, what do you got on DJ LeMahieu? And I said, he's a great player and a great guy. And I said, I see that you're going to use him as a utility guy and play him every once in a while. I said, that ain't going to fly with DJ. So, I was looking at that more in retrospect. So, but no, I don't really get involved. Jeff and I talk a lot. I know I go to every game here, so it seems like all the time I'm telling Jeff, well, I know he hits well here, but I try not to get in the decision process. The Nolan deal was a little different because it was a large contract. It took me sort of trying to figure out with Jeff money wise, this deal started off at, just basically that every team thought we were trying to dump him, and that was not the case. And so when you got a combination of money and players, it took a little coordination, but no, I try not to get involved in that.
Thank you.
We have time for two more. Woody Page with the Gazette. Go ahead.
Dick, based on the performance of your general manager prior to the couple of years you were in the playoffs and since then, did you decide or think about deciding whether or not he should be fired, considering the acquisitions of free agents here, those relief pitchers that you obtained years ago for $105 million. The fact that your minor league system is considered among all experts of baseball, even though they're in the media, to be one of the worst three in baseball draft and development team. And his relationship with not only Nolan, but with other players, did you consider firing him? And why didn't you? And also, why haven't you considered firing yourself? You're the owner of the team, as the president of the team, and bringing in an experienced baseball executive, which has never been done here in the history of the Rockies, where a former general manager or a former vice president of a franchise has been brought in. That's my question. No follow-up.
Did you say no general manager's ever been brought from the outside?
That's correct. As a general manager here or executive.
Like Dan O'Dowd?
He was not a general manager before he came in.
Oh, I got you. Okay. So the answer to all those are no. I like to, I look at the same publications about all the minor league teams, and Trevor Story was never in the top 100. Charlie Blackmon was never in the top 100. One of our issues in Colorado, to be quite honest, is we really don't, for whatever reason, maybe it's because they're not going to rank pitchers or because they know they're going to have to pitcher. I don't know. I don't think so. I've been taught over time to not pay attention to that. I see our farm system. I see the what we go through to draft players. I see our development people. I go to all our minor league teams. I see the work and effort that we put into all of this. So I guess if I can, I'll disagree with some of those comments. But no, I have not thought about firing Jeff. I have thought about firing myself, but I have not thought about firing Jeff.
All right, we'll go to Vic Lombardi with the last question. I apologize for everyone that I wasn't able to get to, but Vic, go ahead.
Hey guys, I think we all knew the trade would become inevitable. I think what Rockies fans and most of us, when we found out that you were sending all that money to St. Louis, does it make sense if you knew Nolan would opt out to keep him for 6 more months and save that money? I mean, can you explain the business side of that?
Yeah, I thought I did, but I'll go over it again. Yeah, I mean, if we had played it out and let Nolan opt out, we would have paid Nolan $35 million this year, and we would have got 1 draft pick at the end of the year. And Jeff can tell you what number, somewhere in the 30s, I would guess. So that's what we would have got. So what we ended up doing was we deferred some money, we paid him some money over time, and we were able to pick up 5 players. And we felt, relatively comfortable that 4 of those 5 players would have been sort of the type of guy that we might have got with that 1 pick. So it was, that was the decision, if that makes any sense.
All right, that's all the time we have. Again, apologize for anyone I wasn't able to get to. Jeff and Dick, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you everyone for hopping on. Have a great day.